I just want to say at the outset here, I understand the irony of naming a video The Final Word and then having a part 2. Hey everyone, Dylan Schumacher, Citadel Defense, and we're here today to talk about drones. Again, I made this video, right, The Final Word on Drones, which was a semi-humorous title to me, at least. But this is the part 2. Why? Because I thought about it some more and I had some more thoughts. And my additional thought that I would like to add into the pile here is that drones, depending on how you're going to run them, more than likely require a higher level of centralized control. They require a higher level of centralized control. They require some kind of central command unit, if that's an individual person or a group of people, that is directing more traffic so that you don't start having friendly fire incidents, so that you're able to, get the drones out to where they need to be and back, and you need that communication hub, that command element, directing the music and directing the traffic, right? Now, that's not always the case, right? You could push drones down to like the squad level or the team level, and we talked about that a little bit in our last video, so if you didn't see part 1, you can go back and talk about that there. But more than likely, how a drone or an effective drone team or droning in the Minuteman world would be implemented is going to require a more centralized control. And there are 2 major problems I see with that. One is just people, right? Do you have enough people to be able to have that dedicated command element? And do you have someone who's competent enough to be able to run that dedicated command element? And let's say you have that. Yeah, Dylan, we got that. We can do that. I mean, that's all great, whatever. That's cool. The other problem is it quashes an initiative. And I think this is the real problem to me. Not of all drones in general, but of this video. I think this is the additional problem that's significant that we need to address. Continual drone usage quashes initiative. And what I mean is, example, sample size 1, but I'm out on this FTX with one Shepherd. We're running drones, both sides are running drones. Every time there's a drone that's up, what do? Well, we run and hide, right? Because we don't want to get spotted by the drone. We don't know if it's ours, we don't know if it's someone else's, we don't know anything yet. So we run and hide, which makes sense. Then maybe we find out over the radio it is ours, then maybe we don't, whatever. That's a very small microcosm of it quashing initiative, right? You have to react to the drone. Let's say I want to go do this attack. The first thing I need to do is I need to make sure, well, hey, we don't have any drones up, do we? I'm not going to get lit up by my own drone. There are additional steps to just taking action. And at the Minuteman level, that's a pretty big deal, because that is one of the very few things that you have is initiative and being able to make snap decisions and be nimble and tactically agile. Right? The bigger systems get, the less nimble they are, the less agile they are. Everybody wants to be agile. Everybody wants to be nimble. Nobody wants to be a sluggard machine. But it is part of the deal. When you get these big juggernaut things, the US Army being the premier example in all of human history, it just requires more centralized control in order, because you have so many pieces. You have so many things going on. If you look at the Romans versus the Gauls, right? The Romans who chewed through most of their opponents for almost 1,000 years. Why did they do that? Well, they had a huge military and a very dominant machine, right? They didn't just fight as individuals, they fought as units, right? And they crushed opposition because they had a higher centralized control that was able to organize and move the pieces together to effectively destroy the enemy. Okay? That, and they always had more people. There's some other reasons. This isn't a Roman history channel, but maybe it should be. Point being, you could do a lot with that. So the US military, right, when you have all these pieces, you have helicopters and fighter jets and drones and missiles and artillery and mortars and machine guns, and you have all these things that have to be coordinated and checked and not used at the same time, or used at the same time but in the same area so no one else is in there, so you avoid friendly fire. There's all kinds of things you have to do there. And the US military historically has been a very firepower heavy military, which means we just send out gazillions of tons of lead and destroy everything that's out there. Right? That's not how other armies have typically fought. That's how we've fought, and to be honest, in big major wars, it's worked out very well for us, right? Not so much in the insurgencies, different video, different topic. Point being, you, as the American Minutemen, don't have all the firepower to just dump out there. So is centralizing command more really benefiting you? And that's an open question. I don't think so, but I think that's a question you'd have to answer, right? You'd have to answer, is adding that extra layer of command and control beneficial, or is it squashing one of the tiny advantages we have, which is that fire team can make a snap decision and go, and they don't have to check with anyone because they can just independently operate. Right? They don't have to check. This is one of the big advantages that insurgencies for the past 50, 75 years since World War II, and the rise of communism have really had. It's one of their major advantages. They operate in little cells, they plan their own missions, right? You look at like the IRA or different terrorist cells throughout the world in history here, and they can just do whatever they want. They don't have to check. They have supreme initiative. They see an opportunity and they can capitalize. And as an everyday American Minuteman, that's one of the very few advantages you have. And to add this other thing that's cool, the drone, that requires squashing some of your initiative. Now, hey, you could say, well, Dylan, we could work around the initiative issue, right? We could push it down to a lower level. We could, there's some things you can do, and I grant you that. I think that's important discussion and thought to have. But I want the discussion and thought to be had. Are we quashing initiative by adding more command and control that won't really benefit us? Is the juice worth the squeeze? Command and control is worth it when you have, again, all the firepower of God behind you, and you can launch all the stuff. Well, then it makes a lot of sense to have good command and control, right? Because the lead and the bombs and the boom booms, that's doing all the work for you. Then you send in people, right? That's how we fought. You can argue whether that's good or bad. That isn't really relevant to this video. My point is I understand the line of thinking in order to do that, to have that level of command and control. But mimicking a small part of that on your Minuteman team, is it beneficial? Does it quash your battlefield initiative? From my experience and my conceptual understanding, I would say yes. Yes, it would. And I think that is one of the main advantages that we have, and we should treat that very carefully, very preciously. And our initiative and our nimbleness is one of our biggest assets. And even if it's a good thing, I would turn down a good thing because the initiative is a more important thing. You can't have all the things. So let's major on our majors. Let's do well what we can do really well. And I think in having initiative and tactical mobility, agility is really important. And there's a lot of good things I would say no to in order to preserve that. That's my final word on drones. Part 2, maybe there'll be a part 3. Maybe I'll have more thoughts. I don't know. Do brave deeds and endure.